Good morning, students. The topic that we are going to do today is United Nations Security Council. Now, again, this is a revisionary topic. I have done this topic with you, but I thought of revising all the important topics with you that are important for your examination. And United Nations Security Council is one such topic that you people should know. This is an important topic. This can come as a big question also, or it can come as a 10-mark question also. So you need to be prepared about this topic. So basically, I'm doing all the United Nations organizations with you people again, so that any organization will definitely be asked in your examination. I have done General Assembly with you people. Today we'll be doing United Nations Security Council. I'll be doing ECOSOC with you people, International Court of Justice, and the Secretary General. So these 5 topics I thought of covering. Trusteeship Council I'm not covering because this organ does not exist now. So the chances of it being asked in your exams are very less. So this is the topic that we have to do, United Nations Security Council. Now I'll start with this topic. First of all, United Nations Security Council is one of the organs of the United Nations and is charged with the primary responsibility for the maintenance of international peace and security. So within the United Nations, the United Nations has been formed to maintain international peace and security, but the primary responsibility among all the organizations, the primary responsibility is of Security Council to maintain international peace and security, because the name of the council, if you see, is Security Council. So the responsibility that has been entrusted upon the Security Council is basically to maintain international peace and security. Second is its power include the establishment of peacekeeping operations, the establishment of international sanctions, and the authorization of military action through Security Council resolutions. It is the only UN body with authority to issue binding resolutions to member states. Now, what powers it has? First of all, it has the powers of establishment of peacekeeping operations. Now, I'll tell you what is peacekeeping operations. Now, for example, there is a war that is happening in, let's say, for example, any country. If I talk about, for example, it was there in Sri Lanka. So a civil war happened in Sri Lanka between the Sinhalese and the Sri Lankan Tamil. So whenever a war, ethnic war is happening in a country, peacekeeping forces are being sent by the United Nations in order to maintain peace in that region. So a lot of troops which will be contributed from by numerous countries, these troops, these soldiers will be sent as peacekeeping forces in that country, so that peace can be maintained in that country. There is no war that happens between the people. So basically, the United Nations Security Council, the first power it has is to establish peacekeeping operations. Whenever there is a war in any country or between two countries, peacekeeping forces, which includes the soldiers from various countries, are sent as peacekeeping forces, and they go over there in order to maintain peace so that nobody fights a war, because already there has been a lot of human rights violation. The second is the establishment of international sanctions. Now I'll tell you what are sanctions. For example, you people know that in the present circumstances, it is banned to test nuclear weapons in the atmosphere. You people know that in the present times, you cannot test a nuclear weapon in the atmosphere because it has a wide ramification on the population living, because these nuclear radiations will be spread in the atmosphere, and you never know that who are the people who can be impacted out of it. And therefore, testing the nuclear test in the atmosphere, it has been banned, has been prohibited. But for example, any country, let's say we have a possibility of North Korea only doing the same. So example, if North Korea tests its nuclear weapon in the atmosphere, then obviously this is against the international norm. It is against the international treaty of disarmament which has been signed. And therefore, when any country is not complying with the orders that has been the norms of the international relations and the principles of the international relations, then the Security Council has the power to issue sanctions. Now, what are sanctions? Sanctions basically can be of any types, like economic sanction. Economic sanction means no country will trade with that country. So for example, if it's a small country and it has done such it had such audacity to do such crime, like testing a nuclear weapon in the atmosphere, then Security Council can put economic sanctions on it. Economic sanctions means no country will trade with that country. And obviously, this is the time of globalization when all the countries are depending upon the commodities and products from all the countries. And therefore, if economic sanctions will be imposed by the Security Council on that country, it becomes very difficult difficult for the country to survive in the international system. And therefore, economic sanctions can be one sanctions that can be imposed by the Security Council. And the authorization of military action through Security Council resolution. If the country is not adhering to the international norms, the Security Council can also issue military action against that country. Military action means the military from the Security Council will go and will action will be taken against that country militarily. There can be soldiers who will be invading that country in order to rectify, or in order to correct its behavior, in order to teach this to that state that whatever you're doing is a matter of very adamancy in the international system. So military action can be taken by the Security Council against that state, and it is the only UN body that has the authority to issue binding resolutions. Binding resolution means whatever resolution Security Council is issuing, it is upon all the member states to accept it and to abide by it, to follow it. If the countries are not following the resolutions which are being issued by the Security Council, then Security Council can take actions against them, and actions can be in the form of international sanctions. Economic sanctions can be imposed, or it can be through military action, when the Security Council will ask a military to take action against that state. So this is the only UN body that can issue binding resolution. Binding means where everybody has to follow it. Non-binding means where it is upon the choice of the state to follow it or not, but binding means everybody has to follow that resolution. Every state has to follow those resolutions. Now, who are the members? The Security Council consists of 15 members. There are in total, the membership is 15, and the 5 countries, that is Russia, United Kingdom, UK, France, China, and US. These 5 countries are permanent members of the Security Council. Permanent means they will never go away. Their tenure will never end. They will always be the members of the United Nations. 5 countries, Russia, United Kingdom, France, China, and US. They are the 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. And these members can veto any substantive Security Council resolution, including those on the admission of new member states or candidates for Secretary General. Now, I have explained this veto power and substantive Security Council resolution in detail in the next slide. So therefore, I'll be not doing this right now, but you should understand that there are 15 members in the Security Council, out of which 5 are permanent members and 10 are non-permanent members. So 10 non-permanent members I've written. The 10 non-permanent members are elected on a regional basis to serve 2 terms. So basically 2 terms for 2 years they are elected, the 10 non-permanent members, and they are elected on regional basis. Regional means it is taken into consideration that countries from each and every continent are there. So for example, from Asia there can be 2 countries, from Europe there can be 2 countries, from Africa there can be 2 countries, from Australia, New Zealand, there can be 1 country. There, from US, there can be, from North America, there can be 1 country, and from South America, there can be 1 or 2 countries. So this is taken into consideration that continental-wise, every country gets a chance, and therefore it is elected on regional basis for 2 years. The 10 non-permanent members are elected for 2 years, and the body's presidency rotates among its members. So every time the presidency, whosoever will be the member states, one will become the president of the Security Council. So the composition is, there are in total 15 members, 5 are permanent members. Russia, US, UK, France, and China are permanent members, and there are 10 non-permanent members which are elected after every 2 years, and the presidency of the Security Council rotates among them monthly. So monthly every new president is elected, and the time they serve, these non-10 permanent members, is 2 years. For 2 years they are elected. Next is the voting procedure. Here I'll explain what has been the voting procedure in the Security Council. Now each member of the Security Council has 1 vote. So if there are 15 members, every member has 1 vote. Decisions of the Security Council on procedural matters shall be made by an affirmative vote of any 9 members. Now, if you people understand this thing, out of 15, if a decision has to be taken, the value of that decision, or the voting of that decision, is taken as 9. So if 9 members are saying yes to that decision will take place. But this 9 has been divided into 2. For example, if the matters are procedural, I'll explain this to you again. If the matters are procedural means day-to-day matters like selecting a resolution, voting a procedure or taking a decision, taking an oath. This becomes a procedural matters, means day-to-day matters. So for this, an affirmative vote of any 9 members are required. So for example, a resolution needs to be passed uh, that maybe there is a draft resolution that needs to be adopted, and if that draft resolution needs to be adopted, then every country has to vote. So out of 15, if any 9 members say yes to that resolution, then that resolution will be adopted. Now mind you people, any 9 means whether the 5 are saying yes or no, it doesn't matter. Out of 15, if any 9 says that yes, we are on the same page with the decision, we want this resolution to pass, then if any 9 members says yes to that decision will take place. This is known as, on procedural matters, any 9 members, with any 9 members vote, the decision will take place. But on substantive matters, now substantive matters are the matters of importance, very important matters, and in these matters, the affirmative vote of 9 members, including the concurring vote of the permanent members, are required. That means in this also 9 votes are required. But in these 9 votes, the 5 permanent members should say yes. That means not any 9. Here it is written, the concurring votes of the permanent members are also required. Concurring means ek ke baad ek. So every permanent member should also say yes. So if there are 5 permanent members, 5 ke 5 ko हाँ बोलना जरूरी है in substantive vote. And from the 10 non-permanent members, any 4 can say yes. So basically on substantive matters, like important matters, for example, economic sanctions have to be imposed, new members have to be increased, the Security Council members needs to be increased. All these are important matters. And in these matters, the 9 members should say yes, but among these 9, the 5 should also say yes. So not any 9, it should include the 5 permanent members. So this becomes a very difficult decision, and because of this, India also wants to have a permanent membership in the UN Security Council, but India is not able to get it. The reason being, to increase the membership in the Security Council, it becomes a substantive matters, and the substantive matters requires the vote of 5 permanent members also. So for example, all the countries agree that okay, fine, India should be given permanent membership, but China does not agree, and because of one country also, the decision is not happening. This is known as veto power. Now what is veto power? I'll explain this to you. Now, the creators of the United Nations Charter conceived that the 5 countries, China, France, USSR, which is now Russia, United Kingdom and US, because of their key roles in the establishment of the UN, would continue to play important roles in the maintenance of international peace and security. Now, what has been decided? It has been decided by the creators of the United Nations, because these countries were the creators of United Nations. US, UK, France, China, and Russia. They have created United Nations. Russia, at that time, it was Soviet Union. They have created the United Nations, and therefore it was decided that these members should be given some special powers, and that special power was the right to veto. Now, what is right to veto? If on substantive matters, that means matter of importance, if any of these 5 members say no to that decision will not happen. I'll give you an example. Suppose economic sanctions have to be imposed on North Korea. Now this has to be decided. It's an important topic. It's a substantive matter. Therefore, everybody, all 5 members needs to say yes. So when voting happens, for example, say 4 of the non-permanent members are saying yes, or 6 of the non-permanent members are saying yes, that doesn't matter. When you require 9 votes on substantive matter, it should also include the concurring vote of all the 5 permanent members. So for example, UK said yes, we can impose sanctions on North Korea. France said yes, okay, we will also impose sanctions on North Korea. UK also said yes, we should impose sanctions on North Korea. Even Russia said we should also impose sanctions on North Korea. But when it comes to China, because North Korea is very dear to China, China says no, we will not impose nuclear sanctions on North Korea, and therefore the decision will not take place, because even if one member says no to a decision, then that decision does not take place. This is known as the right to veto. I hope you have understood that on substantive matters, only on substantive matters, which requires the vote of all the conquering 5 permanent member states. So all the 5 permanent member states should say yes to a decision. Even if one country say no to a decision, that decision will not take place. This is known as right to veto. Veto means saying no to a decision and stopping a decision from becoming a policy. This is known as right to veto. I hope you've understood this. Now we come to powers and functions of the Security Council. The first and the foremost important function is to maintain international peace and security. I've already explained this. Second, it also have the power to investigate any dispute or situation which might lead to international frictions. So for example, if there is a normal war that is happening between a normal civil war that is at a very nascent stage, and it is happening in a country, then obviously Security Council has the authority to go in that country and investigate that dispute, that whether it can lead to a full-fledged war or not. If it's a small dispute, obviously that can be resolved, but if it has the potential to become a very big dispute, then Security Council can take action against that state. So it also has the right to investigate any dispute or situation. Now it recommends methods of adjusting such disputes. So I have already told you that in international system, disputes will take place. There will be fights between the country, but the Security Council also has the power to recommend methods to the states how to resolve these disputes. It can recommend methods that by sitting together, you can resolve this dispute. By negotiating an agreement, you can resolve this dispute. Or by exchanging a dialogue, you can resolve this dispute. Or engaging into a mediator or a reconciliation method, you can resolve this dispute. So it can obviously recommend certain methods by which the countries can resolve any disputes that happen between them. Next is it will formulate plans for the establishment of a system to regulate armaments. You people know disarmament is the new policy. So it will formulate a plan that how can we establish a system in which armaments will be regulated. We'll move towards disarmament where the armaments will be no more there required in the world. So it can make plans for that. It determines the existence of a threat to peace or act of aggression. Now it only determines that whether this act can lead to aggression or it can damage peace. So for example, there is a little conflict, it will only determine that this action can lead into a full-fledged war, it can disturb the peace of the world. It also has the right or the power to determine the existence of a threat, whether a threat exists or not. Next is it call on members to apply economic sanctions and other measures not involving the use of force to prevent or stop aggression. That means it can ask the member states to apply economic sanctions to the country which are not abiding or which are not following the guidelines of the Security Council. I already told you the countries which are adamant, which are not listening to the Security Council, the Security Council has the power to call upon the member states in order to issue economic sanctions upon them. And I've already explained you what are economic sanctions. Basically, no country will trade with that country, and this is an isolation policy also. No country will be trading with that country. So this can be implied, this can be used by the Security Council. It has the power to take military action against an aggressor. Suppose a person is an aggressor who's continuously fighting, who's continuously threatening or giving a warning to attack, then obviously Security Council has the power to take military action against that state. It will recommend the admission of new members. So if new members needs to be added in the Security Council, it can recommend that yes, this is the time we should add new members to the Security Council. It recommends to the General Assembly the appointment of the Secretary General. So basically, and the judges of the International Court of Justice. So the judges of the International Court of Justice and the Secretary General are recommended actually by the Security Council to the General Assembly, and both of them together elects them. So Secretary General of the United Nations, you people know Antonio Guterres is the present Secretary General of the UN. The Secretary General and the judges of the International Court of Justice both are elected by the Security Council and General Assembly, and therefore it can recommend to the General Assembly for the appointment of the Secretary General and the other judges of the International Court of Justice. Now next is the United Nations Security Council. What is the reforms that are there? So the heading should be the reforms that needs to be there. Now, first of all, there are 5 key issues that are asked in reforms. The issues are categories of membership. That means what kind of membership should be there, who should be the members of the Security Council. This is one of the issue which needs to be reformed. Categories of membership, who should be the membership should be continent wise or which wise this categories of membership needs to be defined. Second is the question of the veto held by the 5 permanent members, whether this veto which exists with the 5 permanent members should be there or should do away with, or it should be expanded to include other countries also. Regional representation, where countries, every continent is being regionally represented or not. For example, if you see Asia is a very big continent, so at least 2 countries from Asia should be the non-permanent members of the Security Council. Already China is a permanent member, but there can be 2 more countries from Asia that can be a non-permanent member. So whether regional representation is there or not, this can be a point of reform. The size of an enlarged council and its working methods. If the council enlarges, it becomes India is also included, Brazil, Japan, and Germany. These 4 countries want, they are also part of G4 group. So these Brazil, India, Japan, and Germany, they also want to have permanent membership in the Security Council. That means out of now we have 5 permanent members, that can be expanded to 9. So if this happens, then what will be the working methods? And the Security Council General Assembly relationship. So what should be the Security Council General Assembly membership? Who should be more powerful? Whether the Security Council should be more powerful or whether the General Assembly should be more powerful? That relationship needs to be reformed. So these is a proposal to admit, and there is also a proposal to admit more permanent members. I've already told you, India, Brazil, Germany, and Japan, they bid for the seat of permanent members. This is one of the point that needs to be addressed. These are the reform areas which needs to be reformed. What has been India's demand? India has been calling for the reform of UN Security Council along with Brazil, Germany, Japan for long, emphasizing that it rightly deserves a place at the UN table as a permanent member. So what is India demanding? India is saying that there is a need to reform the UN Security Council, and it, along with Brazil, Germany, Japan, and India, of course, has been emphasizing its right that yes, I also deserve a permanent membership in the UN Security Council. And the reason which India enlists is, first of all, India was among the founding members of the United Nations. So when San Francisco Conference, when the charter was adopted, and then the Potsdam conferences, when the charter was ratified, at that time also India signed it. So India was a founding member. It should be given a permanent seat. Second, it is the second largest and one of the largest constant contributor of troops to the United Nations peacekeeping mission. So India has been constantly providing its soldiers for the UN Security Council peacekeeping mission. So when India provides a lot of troops, lot of army for their peacekeeping operations, then India should also be given a seat in the Security Council, a permanent seat in the Security Council, because India has always been second largest contributor, and in fact one of the largest constant contributor of the troops to the United Nations peacekeeping missions. And lastly, it has been a member of United Nations Security Council for 7 terms. So that means as a non-permanent member, India has served almost 7 terms, and therefore this becomes very important for the United Nations to recognize this. So it becomes very important for Security Council to recognize this important prestige that India has. And it is also a member of G77, that is again a group. G77 has been formed out of NEO. So that was the time all the developing countries ka group hai G77. So it is also one of the member of this G77 group. It is also a member of G4 group. G4 is this Brazil, Germany, Japan, and India group which want permanent membership. So permanent membership is a logical extension. So India should get this permanent membership, because then one more point you can add, India is a democratic country, and being a democratic country, this is one of the founding principles of United Nations, that the country should be a democratic country. So we are a democratic country. We have been a constant provider of troops. We are the founding members of the United Nations. We are the members who are also a member of a groupings like G4, G77. So we should be given a permanent membership in the UN Security Council. These are the reforms that India wants to initiate. So instead of United Nations Security Council, there is one thing that I forgot to add. You can write United Nations Security Council reforms. So reform words needs to be there. These are the reforms that India wants. India wants a permanent membership in the UN Security Council. But you know the politics, it's a substantive matter, because if any new member needs to be added, it becomes a substantive matter, which requires all the 5 countries to vote to say yes to India's permanent membership. Even if UK says yes, now US can also say yes to it. France can also say yes to it. Even Russia has been a very good friend of India. Russia can also say yes to India's membership. But what about China? China has always been an enemy, a state which has been a rival power with India, and therefore China will never want India to sit as a permanent member just beside. China. And therefore, this is the issue which is there. The reforms are not happening. So how these reforms can be initiated, what can be the relationship of United Nations and Security Council and General Assembly, that needs to be defined in a more clear sense. So this is the end of my topic. I hope you have understood it. It was just a revisionary topic. I have already done this topic in the class. In case you have any doubts still, if there are certain doubts that remain, you people can mail me and I'll be reverting to your mail. And thank you so much. My mail ID remains the same. It is swati.saxena@alc.edu.in. Thank you so much.